Why is my engine taken apart again? Well, I'll tell you. It's because of this guy right here. How did this happen? Alright, so to be honest folks, I almost didn't make this video just because I didn't want to get crap from the Ford guys about how I should have done a $20,000 motor swap instead of what I did. But if it makes you guys feel good, then I'm happy to bring that to you. But I decided to go ahead and share this in the spirit of transparency. Since day one, this channel has been about sharing what I've learned, showing you guys my mistakes so you can learn from them without going through the crap that I have gone through. It's not really to sell you on the LS or anything that I do here. It's just pretty much to take you guys through the process of what I'm going through. I don't care if you don't like the LS. That's not my purpose for making these videos. But while we're on the topic, what went wrong with this motor is not necessarily an LS issue. This is a first time engine builder issue. Myself being the engine builder, there are some lessons that I've had to learn during this process that unfortunately I've had to learn the hard way. I'm sharing them with you because hopefully somebody out there will see what I've done and they'll be able to prevent from themselves from doing what I did. So I'm just going to take you through a little chronology of what happened and what led to that happening. So basically, ever since I've had this thing running, it's been running for about 4 or 5 weeks now. I've had a lot of good pulls on it. It's run great. It's been absolutely everything that I've ever wanted out of an engine. But there was something that always made me a little bit uneasy. It would make random clicks and ticks and taps at random times. It was inconsistent and I just didn't know what it was. It felt like it was something bad, but I just didn't know what it was. Last weekend I was driving, it let out a horrible screech and then it just started tapping like rod knock. So I assumed it was a rod knock because that's very similar to what a rod knock sounds like. And I parked the car, I trailered it home, and I parked it on the street, and I actually basically gave up on the build at this point. The only thing that kept me from listing the car for sale is because this car is basically worth nothing as far as resale value goes, but I quit. I was done. A couple of days later, I decided to pull it in the garage and see what was going on. You know, was it really a rod knock? I don't know. I figured I could at least pop the valve covers off and see. So when I pulled the valve cover off, I'll go ahead and show you what I found. So basically what you saw there was the rocker was loose, but it was actually all the way tightened down. So the rocker hadn't actually come loose, there was play in it. So when you see the rocker loose like that, that could be an indication of a bent push rod, which it was not, or it could be a collapsed lifter, and in my case it was actually something a little bit more severe. So I knew that I had to get down to the lifters and see what was going on. So I pulled the heads, I got the lifters out. As you could see, this lifter here was completely trashed because it was basically riding on top of the cam and it just got completely worn down from riding on top of the cam. It did destroy the cam, and that's pretty disappointing. I don't remember if that's the lobe there, but there we go. I don't remember if that's the lobe there that was the bad lobe, but as you can see, there's a lot of damage on a lot of the lobes. So although that was the only lifter that got completely obliterated, all of the lifters were mashed in on the sides. Just about all of the lifters were mashed in on the sides like this. And just in case you don't know what a lifter is supposed to look like, this is one that actually didn't have any issues. as you can see, the edges are sharp because it's meant to ride flat on the camshaft. So I wasn't really sure what was going on. I hopped online and did a little bit of reading, and I found out that, you know, one person in one obscure thread that I found said that he got the wrong lifter trays, and I'm like, well, that can't be it. So these are lifter trays, and I'll explain to you exactly why I believe this is the cause of my issue. So I had no idea that these were actually like a functional part of the engine. These are literally the only non-OEM or better parts that I got. Everything in my engine is OEM or name brand upgrades. I actually bought these lifter trays just because I figured, like, hey, you know, I've got old ones, I might as well throw new ones in since I've got new everything else. I went and I bought them. It looks like a plastic piece to me. I thought maybe it's just a funnel for the oil to go down, something to help you to put the lifters in the engine and then just sits in there. No, these are actually like a functional moving part of the engine. Now the lifter trays themselves don't move, but the lifters actually do move inside of them, and that's where their function comes from. So I'll go ahead and explain to you how that works. So this is my Chinese knockoff lifter tray, and again, I didn't skimp on the price. I just didn't realize, and you can tell when these things are bad as soon as you go to put the thing in, because I'll show you in just a second. This just comes from me being a first-time engine builder, not knowing any better. It has nothing to do with the design of the LS, even though I really think that they could have done better with this. It really just comes from me not knowing any better and installing a part that was never going to work in the first place. So if you look at this lifter tray here, I drilled holes in these just for oil flow back on one of the previous engines, and I cracked it here because this is very old brittle plastic, and that's part of why I bought a new one. So I was just like, hey, you know, this is old, I wouldn't want this to crack inside the engine, let me just go get brand new ones. So this is the old lifter tray, this is the new lifter tray. As you can see, when you put the lifter in it, now this is upside down right now because obviously it points down inside the engine, but when you put the lifter inside the tray, as you can see, it's got a lot of play in it. So the ability of this thing to turn back and forth is just enough for this thing to get off center and start riding on the edge of the wheel. And if you can imagine, you know, I mean, this thing is going up and down several thousands of times per minute, which is hundreds of times per second. I mean, you know, a second just went by, and this thing is pounding 100 times. So it's going to start to wear out that wheel down at the bottom. And, you know, once you get up to like 6,500 RPMs or higher, I mean, it can start smashing into the cam. It's not designed to turn that way. Now if I go to show you the OEM lifter tray, it slides in here, it's a tight fit. I can't turn this thing back and forth. In fact, I can actually lift the tray up by it because it's a tight fit. Now, I don't think these things move around in the tray very much, because if you look at a cam lobe, I mean, that's like, I don't know, a ½ inch or less. I mean, obviously it's measured in cam specs or whatever, but the amount of travel that this lifter travels is not that much, you know, to me. I just didn't realize the function of these things. So it goes up and down inside of here. This holds it stable, and it rides on the flat part of the camshaft. So what happened in this case, where the lifter broke, it probably twisted sideways, you know, in there, and you know, so you can see that that's not even in there correctly, but it fits, and it just wore itself out. So that's what happens when you get cheap knockoff lifter trays. Don't do it, folks. Buy OEM ones, and even if you do get knockoff ones, you can tell whether or not they're good or bad when you put the lifter in it. If it's loose, it's no good.